Hi, everybody. This is Jerry Serino of From the Median Podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining me. We are, of course, sponsored by Cleveland Right to Life. So I'd highly encourage you to go to all the different social media for Cleveland Right to Life. And please subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast apps as well. And if you would love to, we'd love to communicate with you on fromthemedian.org. It's a great opportunity for you all to see all about the show and communicate with us. And if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. As usual, we are welcome with a phenomenal guest, Brandy Meeks. She is the president of Vitae Foundation, and she's here to share with us what her organization does. And we'll see if we can learn a little bit about Brandy as well. So, Brandy, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so honored just to be able to be here with you today and see how we can work more closely together to be able to preserve and protect life in our country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, let's start with your organization
Sure.
and what it's all about. There are so many great resources out there for the pro life cause, but I find that everyone is kind of unique in their own different ways, or they had their unique start to it, and they're just always phenomenal stories. So if you can maybe just share a little bit about your story as far as the Vitae Foundation.
Would love to. Okay, so we've been around almost 35 years, 34 years. We've been doing research on the abortion issue, how to be able to build a culture of life through messaging and understanding why people make the decisions that they do. Now, research, when people think about it, they usually think about things like surveys and polling, and those are great things. That kind of data is really great to understand on the other side how many people made a certain decision, or maybe some of the things that got them to that decision making. But ours actually is much different. Ours is based upon consumer research specifically. So this we use the same kind of research that helps people understand why they purchase certain products. And you might say, well, how does that connect with abortion? But unfortunately, even as crass as it sounds, abortion is a consumer decision.
Hmm.
People are purchasing abortions. And so we need to understand the emotional motivators behind that decision making. And so we've been doing research to help people understand why women are making that decision, why the general culture also has bought into the lies that the abortion industry has perpetuated into our culture.
Hmm.
And most recently, we did a study on men. And when you talk about the uniqueness of different organizations, we are the first organization, pro life organization in our country, who has done a men's research study on the understanding of why men choose abortion in that now moment. And we are using that research to help us really bring men into conversations about the abortion issue so that we can save more lives together.
So what have you found? And I know there's probably a lot. So what you can share in a relatively, short period of time. And by the way, so everyone listening, please, you can go to the website. It's what I'm looking at here, Vitae Foundation .org, VITAE foundation.org, and that'll give you much more opportunity to learn more, participate, donate, whatever you can do. But what did you find in this research, or what's most recent that you found? Let's start with men, because that's kind of unique.
It is unique, right? And so our study is actually called A Few Good Men. And you can go to a fewgoodmenstudy.org and you can find out this very specifics, all of the findings about this, and even some of the material that we packaged together with some video messaging as well. So I'd encourage you, you can go to our website that you just named, or also you can go to a fewgoodmenstudy.org to get more information about that. But really what we set out to do is understand more about why men are being passive on this issue. And one of our first findings that we found is that men feel like women are the ultimate decision makers on this issue, and that they have no say in whether or not their child is carried to term or aborted. And you might say, well, Brandy, that's not a shocker. What is this research even for? But that's part of what we find. We find some things that are surprises, but we also find some things that really the issue is, Jerry, that this isn't a shock to us. It should be a
Hmm.
problem for us. We should wrestle with the fact that men feel like women are the only ones who have a say in this decision, because quite honestly, that it shouldn't be the case. Now, you might wrestle with that a little bit to say, well, that's the way that the laws are set up. Okay, then let's do better, right? But young
Hmm.
men should absolutely be able to have a say in this issue, primarily also because our research leans into the fact what we have an understanding that men are the most influential people in their partner's life when it comes to this issue. So again, like the finding was that men feel like they don't have a say. The reality is you absolutely do. It's just you've been
Hmm.
conditioned to think that you're supposed to say something as compassionate as, and you're probably going to hear it before I even say the words. Our societies has told us that we're supposed to say, I'll support you no matter what you choose.
Yeah.
We have been, even as friends, we're told that that's what we're supposed to say. But from our one of our later research studies that we've done on women, even pro-abortion women will say that they resent that response. They feel like when you say, I'll support you no matter what you choose, that you just took all of that responsibility and shoved it back on her shoulders. I kind of liken it to when someone is maybe grieving a partner that they've lost or a friend that they've lost or a loved one to some degree, and you say, let me know if you need something. Does anyone ever let you know if you need something?
Hmm.
No. Real compassion looks like showing up for them, showing up with a meal or showing up to mow their grass. No one really reaches out to you if they need something. It's that same kind of like box that people check when they say, I'll support you no matter what you choose. Like you handle it, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be here, right, on the other side of it, depending on what your needs are if you reach out. So again, we need to understand that I'll support you no matter what you choose is something that our society has conditioned people to think that is the compassionate thing to say. But real compassion, Jerry, as you know, looks like, I'll help you find a place where you can get some diapers and some wipes. I'll show up and babysit for you so you can finish college. You know what? I can find a place that can help you with some rent assistance. That's what real compassion looks like, not in the life of your child. And I'll be here, if you need something, reach out.
So well said. That is really, it's in a sense, it's as you said, like, yeah, we kind of know that, but it's so in depth and really makes you think about the role that men can play. What we know about abortion is that women are oftentimes either forced or coerced,
Mhm.
and certainly encouraged. And then you have what you're saying is like, hey, what your decision, right? And so that's pretty weak and is going to lead to abortion. Let's say we reverse that, and
Mhm.
I'm talking to men out there, or all of us men, you know, if we reverse that and instead said exactly what you just said, hey, I'll help you, please, don't do this, how many fewer abortions would there be?
I
It would.
can't give you the exact data on that, but I'll back it up with some additional research. This was a light bulb moment for us that we didn't really think about until we were doing this study, is that women don't tell their partner that they're pregnant unless they're looking for affirmation to carry that child to term. Think about it. If she
Mm.
just wanted to have the abortion, she would just go get it on her own. She doesn't want to complicate the matter by having him maybe try to force her into carrying this pregnancy. She absolutely doesn't need him to pay for it anymore either. The abortion industry has made that very clear. Like they will find the funding for you. Heck, they'll ship you across state lines to go get an
Mhm.
abortion. They will make it happen for you. So women aren't telling men that they're pregnant unless they're looking for him to say something as high level as, I'm not sure what this looks like, but I'll help you be the best mom possible and I'll be the best dad possible and we can figure this out together. So that's what I would remind you of, is that when we're looking at that low hanging fruit, like women are looking for men to lead. They wouldn't be asking him, they wouldn't be telling him about this pregnancy. And so I think that's a pretty good indicator that a lot of lives could be saved if men even knew the right things to say. And that's part of the issue, Jerry. These men that were a part of our study, they said, I wanted my child, but I didn't know what to say. And for men that
Mm,
are maybe out there listening to this right now, and maybe you're feeling the weight of this, because I don't know that we've done a good enough job in the pro-life movement of understand. We are really great about acknowledging that women have pain after abortion, but with some of the recent interviews I've been doing on a national basis,
yeah.
it has become so abundantly clear in the comment section that men are hurting. Some of these men have never had children later on. They haven't had relationships past it. They feel like they can't trust women. There's so much hurt that's there. So if you are listening to this right now and you have encountered that, just know that there are resources available to you. And it's not weakness to seek them out. In fact, it's strength, because we need to be able to have a safe place to be able to share our stories, and we want to heal from this together as a culture. We need men to be able to be masculine again and lead.
Mhm.
And in fact, men and women, we were never meant to be in competition. I say this often, but I can't stress it enough. Women are naturally wired to be nurturers. Men are naturally wired to be protectors. It doesn't mean that women can't lead. I'm a strong woman. I lead a team out of our office in Missouri. It doesn't mean that I can't lead. It just means I lead differently. And so, men, hear us. Strong woman here. We need you to protect us, and we need you to protect our children. And that might mean that we need you to make sure that you're getting the help that you need, so that you can process this grief that you might be experiencing and also stand up for life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so profound and so important. I get the feeling as you were talking, the thoughts that were coming to my mind were, this is what you're describing about men, is this is actually, I think, a product of the feminist movement
Mm,
in a sense. Like the feminist movement diminishes men. Women don't need men. And I think men have become weaker, in my opinion, because of it. I mean, we've all had our moments of weakness and not leading our family or our wives or supporting them as we should have. I mean, I'm certainly guilty. But it feels like men are out there trying to like almost be women because
yeah.
they're told to. It's not. I love women. I mean, as you said, you're a huge leader. Um, so anyways, that was just my thinking about feminism. But so what have you found about women and the reasons they choose abortion?
So women they're choosing abortion. Of course, we know that there are all kinds of fears that they're navigating. When you tell a woman choose life, she's actually thinking, whose life? This life that I thought I knew, these plans that I had for myself, this vision, right? This career path, schooling, education, like this picture perfect type of image that I had for myself, or
Hmm.
this life of the child that I'm carrying inside of me. And so that's why it's so important to understand from that framework. In that moment, she doesn't even see herself as a mother. Motherhood is a bridge too far for her. So we
Yeah.
have to connect with her, and be able to bring her along in that process, connect with her on what her fears are. Most of the time, it has to do with the confusion about her future. And that's why I have a deep love for pregnancy centers. I was a pregnancy center director up north of Kansas City for a few years. That's where my roots are in this movement. And I truly believe that as supporters of this cause, we all need to be keenly aware of where our local pregnancy center is. We
Hmm.
need to be volunteering, we need to be investing, and we also need to be very knowledgeable about the resources that they have to offer. So should we ever encounter a young woman who's pregnant and worried and fearful, we know again what real compassion looks like. And real compassion looks like connecting her with your local pregnancy center.
Yes, I interview them all the time and have met so many. They're everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. They really truly are, and they do so much great. There's so much help. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, diapers. It could be formula. It could be babysitter. It could be all sorts. I know people who will help. Them find, get a car.
Mhm.
And maybe they don't pay it all, but whatever. They just there's so much help, and none of that help is given by Planned Parenthood or any of these other groups. Zero,
Absolutely
nothing.
not. And you would be
Nothing.
shocked by that. I mean, a lot of people still think that they do some other good things. So that we're dismissive of the fact that it's not just about abortion. But
Hmm.
I assure you that they're not the ones that are out there encouraging a woman to even entertain life as a choice for their child
Right.
with any kind of support. It's just not happening. It's just not
Mhm.
happening.
No, not in the slightest, not in the slightest. In regards to the history of Vitae Foundation, if you look on the website, there's a story, the story of the foundation, how it started. Can you give us a quick rundown of how
Sure.
it began?
I would love to. So, if anybody has ever traveled to Missouri, in Branson, Missouri specifically, you might know about a little place called Silver Dollar City. And if you haven't
Mhm.
traveled to that region of the country, you might have heard of a place called Dollywood. That's a little lesser known connection with us. But
Mhm.
Dollywood originally was Silver Dollar City, Tennessee. And that was founded by a man named Peter Hershend, who I would consider a friend and quite honestly a mentor. This man sat with our founder in a room and was evaluating some of the messaging that we were putting together in the very original days of Vitae. And he said, Carl, to our founder's name was Carl. He said, Carl, I can see your heart in this. I see what you're doing, but it's just not good enough. This is not going to change hearts and minds on this issue. And Carl was kind of stunned in that moment. Like, I just gave you my best work. It's not good enough. Like, where do I go from here? And Peter, who is a marketing genius, again, if you've ever been to either of those theme parks, you would clearly understand. Again, Silver Dollar City, Tennessee turned into Dollywood because he understood Dolly Parton's brand was so
Yeah.
important in making that come to life. And he's created this incredible environment of stepping back in time in this wholesome environment at a theme park in the middle or in the corner of Missouri. The point is, he understands how to connect with people emotionally, and he had used Dr. Charles Kinney. Dr. Charles Kinney is a leading consumer psychologist. He developed right brain research. We are now fully licensed in right brain research. We've been trained by Dr. Charles Kinney's team, and we've been working with them for decades. He's done stuff for Fortune 500 companies, brands that you would recognize like Jeep and Coca-Cola, GM, Harley Davidson. He's actually the man that convinced GM to continue selling the Corvette. So for all of you out there that are Corvette lovers, you can thank Dr. Charles Kinney for that. Now, Peter Hershend connected us with Dr. Charles Kinney. Dr. Charles Kinney now, like I said, has facilitated our research studies for decades. He has since handed that branding over to us to be able to utilize. And we treat this as a consumer decision on how to communicate the life issue. If you were to sell life, the brand of life to someone, how would you be able to connect with them? So we've done that with studies on women. We've done that with studies specifically on just the general population. And like I said, most recently on men. But the reason why we do this instead of just surveys and polling, Jerry, we believe that you will
Mhm.
never be able to regulate or govern abortion out of people's hearts. Again, laws are
Mhm.
great. Laws help define, in many people's minds, morality. If
Yep.
something's illegal, you're like, it must not be good. Okay. But the truth of the matter is that abortion has become such woven into our fabric as human
Mhm.
beings, as if we're supposed to have this right to it, that
Right.
we have to get to the heart of the issue. And right brain research allows us to do that. It takes down the all of the barriers that people face and allows us to get to the heart of why people connect with abortion or life issues and help transform them so that we can create some cognitive dissonance in them, so that we can ask them some questions and they can see whether or not their thoughts and feelings actually reconcile with their actions. And if they don't, we pose questions to them that help them understand that better so that they can make better decisions.
I have some questions about, maybe specifically how to engage people,
Mhm.
right? Let's set aside the nut jobs who scream in your face and are not willing to listen, and let's also discard. And I don't mean that I don't care about them, but I discard the politicians that are going to support abortion until someone else tells them otherwise, right? Like, meaning it becomes like slavery is, right?
Right.
They won't change on their own moral value.
Mhm.
For someone else, someone, a friend, a coworker, whatever, how would you approach if they express pro-abortion, if the topic comes up and they say, well, it should be up to a woman, it's her body,
Mhm.
I'm not going to tell her what to do, whether it's a man or woman saying this. How does the research suggest you approach them?
Well, first of all, you got to build bridges with people. And I know sometimes that can be really hard, but oftentimes I'll teach workshops about this, that find what you can affirm in them. Find a way to be able to build a bridge to them, because I was just speaking with someone at lunch about this. At the heart of the matter, Jerry, we're all human beings. We have more in common than we actually what we don't. And so we need to find those commonalities and be able to walk those out with people. So the way I start conversations, it depends on if they're a stranger or if they're close friends, or if I'm
Mhm.
meeting them on an airplane, for instance.
Right.
Um, you really have to figure out what ways you can affirm them. And you might say, how on earth do you affirm someone who you feel like you have nothing in common with them? Sometimes I'll even say, you know what, you are really passionate about this issue. I can tell you really care about it. Okay, affirm something in them, and then
Mhm.
draw them. And I do too. And this is why I believe this way. And also, it's almost like a flow chart in your head, right? Because you're going to be battling some of their speaking points, because you're probably going to hear about exceptions, right?
Mhm.
And so you need to understand, like, some really good stories. I have friends, I have coworkers, I have people that work with me, that work on my teams, that were conceived in rape. And I've asked their permission, they share their stuff openly. I'm able to say, you know what, my friend Cass, who you met last week, that was over at my house, like, I can't imagine my life without her. Right. And so you begin to weave in stories together with it, but also understand that sometimes there are some subjects, like, again, if this is a personal experience they've dealt with, you also have to be really cautious and cognizant of that too, because emotions
Mhm.
are so connected to this. But what I
Mhm.
find more often than not is when people say, I personally wouldn't choose abortion, but I don't want to make that decision for someone else. That is where, again, we have to go back into creating cognitive dissonance in people. So, for example, we have an ad, and you can find this, I believe, on our website, where there was a nurse that was had just come in from delivering a premature baby, and she comes into onto the camera and she says, "Wow, we just saved that baby that came 3 months early. I'm so thankful that we have technology to be able to fight for their lives and save them." And then she pauses and she says, what's hard for me to understand is how we're fighting so hard to save lives on this floor, but on another floor we're ending lives of babies the exact same age and size. How is that healthcare?
Mhm.
Do you see the cognitive dissonance there? You're not telling someone how to think or feel, but you're posing questions to them. So, what I would encourage you to do is pose questions to people, not in a
Mhm.
peppering way, but in a way of, like, framing things. Cognitive dissonance works. And if you can cause people to think about it, that's our tagline, think about it, just think about it a little bit more, you really do start to open up conversations with people. But again, we have to start with building a bridge with them so that they can trust you, and also make sure that your compassion and your grace is shining through more than just the need to be right.
Yeah. Very good stuff. Brandy Meeks, President and CEO of Vitae Foundation. Please go to Vitae, Vitae, foundation.org, and to learn is everything about it, even more than what you just heard here. And please get involved if you can, or donate, whatever you're called to do or able to do. We ask you to do that. So, Brandy Meeks, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I
Yes.
appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of From the Median podcast. We will see you next time.